In the game of Survivor, there are many questions. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? And who has the best story? That's the mission of the Survivor Storytellers. It's what they do.
It is indeed what we do. Hey, how's it going? I am Ken with you here with the Survivor Storytellers, and I'm joined by Casey
Hello, everybody.
and Tiki.
Fuck you, Jesse!
And here we are to talk about the final six now, the final five of Survivor. Guys, what an episode.
This season suddenly got great. Yeah.
Yeah, this-
And I
this
will
had
go on
Blindside
record.
on top of Blindside.
I will go on record and say before last night's episode, I thought the pre-merge for the season was pretty solid, honestly. I thought, like, especially with the buildup of Gabler getting one over on Ellie, I thought that all that was pretty well executed on a story level. I will admit, I did think most of the merge has been a slog. I definitely think out of the three merges that we've had in this, post-pandemic era of the show in the 40s, this has definitely been the slowest because it's, we've not had any idols played. The main alliance is pretty much stuck together. It's pretty much been a straight begonging for the most part. But holy hell, sometimes good things come to those who wait because, especially with the paying off the whole, like, okay, when's somebody going to play a damn idol? Yeah, we got that. Cool.
And not just played an idol. They played an idol in a way that we haven't really even seen before. It's like they used it in a strategic way that, like, to flush another person's idol because he already had a second idol that nobody knows about.
Right. I will say it's definitely the kind of TV moment where I really strongly feel like it's going to go down as like one of the all-time great moves when people look back on it.
People online are already saying
Yeah.
it makes the Mount Rushmore of idiotic moves in terms of Cody.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I was about to say, it's like, well, here, let's discuss
I feel
this.
like the edit has been very, very kind to Cody throughout, and we can kind of break that down.
Yeah. Well,
I've
let's just start off
in
with
the
Cody.
last. Yeah, no, you go ahead, Casey. We've been talking over you. You started it off. With
I mean, yeah. Just a quick note on what was previously discussed before. I feel like of the three, post-pandemic seasons, this is probably the second best. But even that, it's very like average. We have had some highs, we've had some lows, but not really too bad. I think this finale is going to potentially make or break it for a lot of us. As for the players, let's dip into Cody here for a second because obviously, he was the most recent boot. Cody has had a really good edit this whole season, and I think his game has been painted very fairly, and we totally get his downside. So in terms of his story, his arc, it was very well executed. We know him as a strategic player. We know him as a social player, and he's been pretty fairly like decent in competitions. But yeah, I mean, I'm really sad to see him go, and I think like I said, I've been seeing a lot on the internet that it makes the Mount Rushmore of idiotic moves, and I was even discussing with my family where it's just like, really, why would he give his idol back? The whole reason they were
I
swapped
really hope we have a
shit
flashback for that, by the way.
What's that?
I really hope we get a flashback for that, by the way.
I mean, I don't know if we need a flashback, especially going into the finale when there's going to be a lot of stuff they need to cover anyway. But it's just like it doesn't make any sense because the reason they swapped everything around was to hide for the knowledge is power advantage. And why would you give your idol back at the final six? It's it's very strange. But
I think what we've seen in this last couple episodes is Cody. Every time he talks about Jesse, every time he's talked about him, he's like, and Jesse, he's my guy. He's my best friend. He's my, partner in this game. We are running this. It's all we. And I feel like to him, Jesse's pocket was his pocket. It's like there was no difference. I think he was viewing his relationship as like a JT Steven thing, where it was an unbreakable bond. And it wasn't. And it was like going into this, I did not think that Jesse would break his alliance with Cody. But the move that Cody pitched, let's be honest, Cody played he played Carla. He played her and had her ready to go, but Jesse, who everyone's been talking about, why aren't we seeing Jesse as a threat? I think Jesse has been doing a real good job of managing his threat level. But I think this is the point where if he managed it too good, Cody overtakes him and becomes like the dominant player out of the two of them in this episode. And that was something I didn't think anybody else saw him as. But if he was downplaying it and giving Cody a lot of credit with his moves and then just lets Cody go to the end, now Cody's not looking like the crazy lunatic. He's looking like a real legitimate contender by the way he would have gotten Carla out with an idol in her pocket at the final 6.
Cody also had the narrative of being a salesman kind of like in his back pocket of like, I could totally see him busting that out. Like, oh, I came into the game targeting salespeople, but I actually am a salesman, guys. Isn't that crazy?
I mean, the thing is that, and I mean, if like, it's almost like we're talking about Jesse and Cody interchangeably, because I've always been a very firm believer that even though sometimes the edit shows it this way, no one really makes moves like solo. Like it is a group effort. It is, you know, at most you need a second person. And this season's very much been like that with like the Jesse Codys, the Carla Cassidys, the fucking Noelle and every other team member she's always been like paired up with. So it's a very interesting thing. I think we've got that more so this season than any other season, but you know, with Jesse Cody, yeah, that's definitely the thing. They've been very much playing together and a lot of things have been going on together. But, you know, I think from the very beginning, people understood how dangerous Cody's social game was. You know, they talk about that. I think it's like episode maybe 4 when he goes over to the other camp to go take their supplies. Like they're very much aware that for Cody, it could go one way or the other. But you know what? Like I said, I think Cody's game was very clear in the edit. And, you know, so bravo to the editors on making it very clear who Cody is, who he is as a player, and what his downfall is. Because those are the 3 things that we really need to understand in a story.
So one thing I do want to make a note on with Cody's edit is, and correct me if you guys see this differently, but I very much read his edit as first couple episodes, bam, out of the gate, like freaking Cody is like the star of the season. He's almost like coach levels of screen time. And then he really does get toned down a lot. Like he has moments where he pops up, like the you know, I think the tribe steal thing, you know, that bartering moment was probably the biggest example. I really do think all throughout most of the post merge, Cody has been, in editing terms, very quiet, like not invisible, certainly, but I don't think he's been, I certainly don't think he's had like the complex personality positive or complex personality mixed edit that I thought he would have.
So if I may quickly comment on that.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. I don't 100% agree with it. I almost feel like it's the HBO effect where like HBO introduces a new show and they lure you in with like sex and nudity. And for Cody, it was his antics, his wildness, his jumping into the pond where everyone takes shits and pisses from previous seasons, you know? Like they lure you in with like all that kind of stuff. But then I think in the merge era of the game, you know, we've actually, I feel like he's always been kind of like, he's always been shown, but it was a transition from the eye-catching stuff to the good player material.
That's fair.
Whereas
sorry.
I was just going to say, whereas, you know, because like I said, we're kind of viewing all of this in duos. Jesse has had these insane high edits and then cooldown periods where I think Cody's been just consistently shown, but he's been shown in different lights as the seasons evolved.
But what I was going to say, though, is that I do think that Cody went really middle of the road. And honestly, a big problem that I had with this post-merge, just all across the board, it literally felt like everyone was getting a middle of the road edit. It felt like everyone was just narrating their game, and that was like fucking it. I have some major major issues with the character development in this post merge. I don't know if it was just the cast not blending together all that well, or if the edit was just focusing on other things, but I just was really struggling to I think this past episode really did do a good job, where now going into the final 5, I feel like fundamentally we know every person's game plan and they have stood out as characters. But for a good swap of this, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I think that watch out for Cody on a return trip.
Oh, absolutely. Cody is
think-
like a lock for a returning player season. Absolutely.
I don't just mean like, oh, watch him come back. I mean, I think Cody has what it takes on a returning player's trip.
I could see him pulling
to
a
fly
Tyson
under the
or something.
radar and pull. Yeah, exactly. Pulling a Tyson-like game in and just being underestimated, because like I think his gameplay lacked a couple of things. It lacked a little bit of a cutthroat nature, because he didn't want to cut NECA. He didn't want to cut, you know, he had no idea that Jesse was even considering cutting him. Getting blindsided by your best ally will do that to you. Will get you that little bit of a, you know,
it might arguably
nature.
be the most brutal blindside in the show's history. I mean, people are saying that, and I tend to agree with them.
I mean, in terms of like somebody who trusted somebody wholeheartedly, with to the point where they gave them their immunity idol and then just got shoved out the door. I think that might be true. I think that might be true.
But
and
I'm sorry, there is one other point I need to make with Cody. I'm sorry, I've been like building up this whole. What's interesting to me about his edit is I really do feel like, you know, with all the middle of the road stuff in the post merge, I do feel like the editors very intentionally were like, okay, on the reward challenge, he gets that fucking coffee in him, and then bam, it's like episode 1 and 2 Cody again. And I really feel like the editors did kind of do that intentionally. I don't even know if it's so much the fact that Cody really was that unhinged, but I mean, man, they really did make a meal out of Cody being high on caffeine. And honestly, I think Cody's main flaw is, you know, maybe outside of being a little bit too trusting, is that the dude is cocky. Like, he is a little bit too sure of himself when it comes to his own abilities. And I feel like that is, like, you have to have some sort of self-assuredness in Survivor, or else you're going to turn into a Lindsay and just second guess everything, of course. But there's always got to be a balance there. I mean, I think Tony is the perfect example of someone who was incredibly paranoid out there. Like, every fucking moment he was incredibly paranoid, but he kept it in check. I think with Cody, like, he was not paranoid, and he did not keep his ego in check. Like, he was, I don't know, honestly, I have, like, if you guys remember, I was a little low on Cody as a character.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like it was like, okay, like, this is just like another coach style big character who's going to eat up all the screen time. Having said that, I do think his actual arc, you know, going from the over the top beginnings to kind of like fading into that sort of middle of the road, kind of like cog turning the wheel, into going back into over the top mode, and that kind of being his downfall. I think overall, looking at it, and then of course I do think the "fuck you, Jesse" on the way out is an incredibly memorable final words. So,
have we ever seen anybody flip off the camera before?
The only other one I can think of is one of my personal favorite voting confessionals, which is Fair Play voting for Sean, and it's just a very blatant, just "fuck you."
yeah, but he didn't flip off the camera.
No,
I was just trying to
camera.
think.
I don't think. Yeah.
In any case, yeah, Cody was a great character. We should probably move on to the players who are now into the final 5, and so, Jesse, I think, is the man of the hour.
I mean, Jesse, I will say this much: I think Jesse is very much one of those players coming into a finale where it's like, I think the three of us can agree, like, I don't know, if someone like an Owen or something pulls off a win, good for him. Like, it'll be a fun story. Jesse is very clearly running circles around all of these people when it comes to the actual gameplay side of things.
He like the thing is that with Jesse, he has had such a strong edit at points. He literally has the exact winner's edit that the Edgic breakdown always predicts, where you have a
It's to
really
the point where his
strong
edit is so
and then
strong.
it's such a strong edit, and then he goes through a cooldown period. And I remember I've literally been saying this to my family and friends since probably like halfway through the season around the merge. Like he's getting those moments where he gets this strong edit and he goes into his cooldown period just enough so you forget him and you can focus on the bigger players. So then he comes back out of the woodwork. And he's gotten these really weird, unique edits we've never seen in a season before. Either he is 100% the Final Four boot, or he's the winner. There is no other. And plus, it would be stupid not.
Literally,
to
is no other.
Yeah,
there literally is no other.
Bro.
He's safe at the Final Five. Here's the thing. That is why I like this move to begin with, because a lot of the other players in the previous seasons in this new era has made their big move and then they've been unprotected in the end game. Omar makes his big move to get out Drea. It was Drea, right? I mean,
yeah.
And then he's unprotected. Well, I mean, I guess Lindsay could have played an idol on, but he didn't have anything to save himself at that moment. Jesse, knowing that this is going to be a big move and knowing that it's possible that it could go back against him, he knows he has an idol. So even if it does blow back in his face and everyone's trying to get him out the next episode, he's safe. But not only does he have an idol, he is the only secret idol. I actually almost want everyone to go against him in the next episode and him pull it out, because that would be just as big of a move. But you're right. He's either losing at Fire or he's the winner of the season.
And frankly, I don't think he's losing at Fire, because I think that Carla's edit has given us some clues that she might be the fire-making loser.
Possibly. Jesse has not done particularly well in the challenges. Not that he's done horribly. Carla has done pretty well in the challenges.
With Carla, there's been a major emphasis.
She's falling apart, though.
Yeah, exactly. And especially an emphasis on her hands. And I would not be surprised if, the thing with her hands going numb is the thing that kills her in any potential fire-making challenge. I also wouldn't be surprised if she uses that as an excuse for someone to carry her to the end if Jesse is the primary target to take out.
And you know what? Another thing that at first I was thinking, why would you get rid of an ally? Why would you get rid of Cody? He's going to go with you to the finals. But then I look at this situation, and right now he doesn't need a Type 2 because there is no other Type 2 in the game. Cassidy and Carla are at each other's throats. Gabler and Owen will throw any one of them under the bus just to get to the final three. There is no other loyal pair in the game, and he's safe at the final five. So really, all he needs to do is get there. All he needs to do is maybe win immunity at 4, maybe win fire making at 4, but all he needs to do is do that challenge. Like, if I was Jesse, I'd be doing nothing but starting fires.
As soon as they get onto that new beach, I would not give a shit about strategizing at that point. I would not give a shit about because the thing is, I feel like with his move that he made, there's almost like this theory in Survivor where it's like at a certain point, you kind of are as big of a threat as you possibly can be, and the cat's kind of out of the bag, and you can't necessarily become less of a threat. That's kind of how I feel that Jesse's position is in right now. Like, it doesn't matter if he goes back and just starts like trying to schmooze over other people. Now clearly see him as the man to beat. So I would be doing everything in my power to just make it through those last 2 rounds, make it through fire making. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario in which he loses this game. And like the thing is, I like Jesse. I've liked Jesse, Cody, and Carla for quite some time now. But you know what? I'm not gonna lie. More than anything, I really want Jesse to lose this game. I really want him to lose this game because he's had such a dominating edit. And it's like, I mean, yeah, there's been other moments, like I said, where he's cooled down so you can focus on other people, but like...
Y'all know that Gabler's still in it, right?
Well, we can discuss Gabler shortly.
Shut your mouth, Tiki.
with
No.
but with Jesse, yeah, he's
Gabler's going to be the Philip Shepard that actually completes his mission.
No, it's not happening.
But yeah, with Jesse, he, like I said, he's just had such a dominating edit, and everything about him is really clear. And they keep going back to his family, and
Yeah,
the future and life that he has built post, his like
the whole
gang
get that
years.
money baby thing to me
Yeah,
was a
it's
pretty
just-
obvious. Like,
there's way too many obvious signs that he's the winner, and I just want to be pleasantly surprised. And you know what?
Not me.
If we have a winner that isn't Jesse, whether that be Gabler, Owen, Carla, or Cassidy, I would actually be fine with that. I think there is some.
I think if Jesse goes out at 4, it's a hell of
logic.
a story at the very least.
What's that?
Like, I think he could potentially like be one of those Sesternino Suri types where it's like unarguably one of the best to not win the game.
I mean, Suri has earned that title after many seasons.
No, you're right.
of
You're
shit
right.
Happening. Whereas I feel
He'd
like
be
people-
more of the Sesternino tier.
Yeah, because I do feel like in the past couple years, people like to throw that kind of shit around where it's like someone's played one season and they played one season well.
People
and then
threw
they-
that shit around with Ricard, and I did not agree with it, but I don't think Ricard did anything. as-
Ricard was self-proclaimed. Let's be honest.
pretty much.
Nobody
Exactly.
except for him was like, I wanted the best to ever play.
One of the greatest of
except for
all
him.
time. No, shut up,
Yeah.
Ricard.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. If anyone else were to win, I could still see it because they all have some sort of merit in the game that they.
I really, really do not want Cassidy to win. Right now, I am at a point where I am like anybody but Cassidy. And let me tell you why.
Her over Gabler.
On that note, should we just switch to Cassidy and Carla?
Sure.
Okay.
I think with Cassidy, my fear with her winning is that if she wins, I'm sorry, but like I almost feel like that's just as much of a paint by numbers edit as Jesse's like, obviously dominant edit. Just because she would literally be the third female winner in a row with this exact fucking same trajectory of just coast, like
Yeah.
I don't want this to be the default way to win the game.
I actually disagree with you. I think they have outlined on a number of occasions that Cassidy's game has been very similar to Carla's, although Carla
I don't think she's done shit.
Although
honestly.
Carla is a much bigger personality, but with
That is
Cassidy on the other hand, they've already said it.
But Cassidy has been outside of Carla's plans multiple times, though. That's my problem.
But here's the thing: as the viewers, we know that, but in the game, the players are saying, and this is what is really more important, is what the players are saying, and not what the editors are trying to tell us. But what the players are saying is that they've been a duo and they've had similar games.
Mhm.
And one of their fears was that they'd get to the end and they'd had that argument that also Cody and Jesse had of like too similar of a game, and plus Cassidy has had like. People that she's been trying to like get out, i.e. most notably, what's that guy's name? Ryan.
I'm going to be frank. She's gotten out goats, and I don't think that's that impressive.
I do believe I'm with you a little bit there, Tiki. Is like the people that Cassidy has gotten out have not been the big target people of the game.
Ryan very easily, like for me, the only reason to target Ryan, and I don't think she laid this out. I literally think it was just like a vindictive, like he wasn't on my side of the numbers on my original tribe. So that's why I'm targeting. I really think it was as simple as that. To me, the actual reason to target Ryan would be this motherfucker is like getting a guaranteed spot in the final 3. Like he is literally.
To be fair, it was a split tribal. It was a split tribal. But I think, like for me as a person, I like the dominant winner edit. I don't care if I can see it coming. Honestly, I don't need to be surprised. So that's why I'm rooting for, like, he was my winner pick from the beginning, and I haven't had many winner picks from the beginning win. I think I got like Mike Holloway, and that's it. It's like I don't.
My winner pick was Sammy, so we all saw how that went.
Sammy did great. But
oh man, Sammy got really raked over the coals in his last couple episodes before you went. It was sad.
Anyway, so like Cassidy, I think I hear what you're saying, Tiki. It's just like we don't want the only way to win Survivor to be the under the radar player.
Mhm.
That's not fun.
And if we do
That's-
three in a row, I just don't like it's nothing even against her
here's the thing.
personally.
Survivor always is a interchanging, like it's an ever evolving monster. Because it's like we've seen multiple times, like the big burly guys win a bunch of season of Survivor. Now they're the targets. Then all the young, sleeky, strategic women start winning Survivor.
Jenna,
now they're
Sandra,
the targets.
Amber, that was a run right there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so I feel like if a bunch of the under the radar players start winning Survivor, then I feel like everyone's going to look at the under the radar players and say, we got to get them out before. So it takes a while though. Survivor doesn't change like that, you know.
Right.
It takes a while to evolve. I just don't think Cassidy has been given the edit that we would hope a winner would have. If she wins, it's Erica 2.0 all over again.
Well, a couple things with that. One, it is statistically proven women do not get the edits they deserve when they win.
That is true. That is very true.
Okay.
I can't argue with you there.
100%.
I really wish women did get that type of edit, but it's very rare. And when it does happen, it's like, oh, look, an actual character who's a woman.
Yeah,
What
so
a novel concept.
Something to keep in mind. But once again, you know, as the editors, they are telling a story. You know, we are the Survivor storytellers, and they need to very clearly outline why someone is a winner. What is their journey? How did they get here? And the thing is with the under the radar players, when you have under the radar players that win, odds are it's because the dominant players did not manage their threat level. And that is a huge part of the game. So you can't fault an under the radar player or multiple under the radar players for winning because other people were dumb and got cocky and didn't manage their threat level. It's a part of the game. You have to manage your threat level.
Absolutely. I don't blame any player for winning. Not even like
nothing against Cassidy herself. It's like more that I am concerned about the meta of the game moving forward if she does win.
It is an ever shifting, you know, winner's meta, I guess, as Ken has said, you know, which is totally true.
Now, here's the thing. Carla, I think now that I've looked at her game a lot, does anyone else think that the edit has made her look better than her actual gameplay has been? And I'm not saying that Carla has played bad, but there's been a lot of times where I feel like she has not moved in her best strategic direction throughout the course of this series and just gone with the flow. This episode, she was conned by Cody into a plan that if Jesse went along with it, would have sent her packing as far as we know, as far as we are told. Because she was and I believe it, just because she seemed to be really struggling with playing her idol at that tribal council, even after Jesse played his on Owen. She seemed to be really thinking hard about it, and so I feel like there's a lot with that. Like I feel like the editors, because her story is great and she's a dynamic character, and like she did the crocodile tears twice in this episode. And they both fell on deaf ears. I mean, not entirely. Like Cassidy was a little bit half swayed, but not. And then
I honestly don't think the edit has been kind to her at all. If I'm being honest,
I think in the more recent episodes, we're seeing her lose her grasp on the game, which is her downfall.
Like I think the moment with the crocodile tears, and then. Like, I think the word that I would use, the word of the hour for Carla, as far as her edit, like maybe from like the last few episodes on, is contradiction. I feel like the edit is constantly going out of its way to contradict, to make Carla contradict what she has already said. A big part of that, and this has been kind of like the running joke of the season on Survivor message boards and whatnot, is the fact that Carla, you know, she starts out wanting to make a women's alliance and yet literally goes on to target almost exclusively women throughout the game. Not exclusively, but, you know, a big...
No, yeah.
Big
to be fair, no women's alliance held this season.
The women, yeah, it's funny because literally all three starting tribes, women's alliance, guys, let's do this.
Say it like it is. No alliance has held this season. for more than
Laser,
like,
Ken, I
every
think
single
that,
one has been broke up.
and I honestly think you hit it kind of on the head where it's like, I feel like the closest thing this season has had to an alliance is that weird grouping of like 7 people that came together at the merge, like randomly. And that was kind of like
was Ryan right? Was Ryan like, hey, let's stick together as a group, and they just excluded him?
pretty much, yeah. But I honestly think that's part of what makes the season, to me, narratively a little underwhelming. I mean, and again, like, we'll have to see how the finale plays, and obviously this penultimate episode was the highlight of the season, and regardless of how the finale plays out, that penultimate episode, I mean, the way I view that penultimate episode is kind of how I view like the Chris Noble boot of Ghost Island or something like that. It's like, it's clearly like the highlight of an otherwise kind of meh season.
Now, here's the thing: like, editors have a story to tell, and they have to edit it in a certain way so that we understand it. But we have to remember that these are just real people that we're working with. Maybe there isn't any story to set up why something is happening. Maybe that person just decides to flip at that day for no apparent reason whatsoever, and there's no setup or like like every other day before that they're my best friend, best ally, and everything. So I get it for something, but I do think the story has been a little bit lazy and over relying on flashbacks in order to tell its story.
Can we please fucking, like, the flashbacks were cool as like a twist reveal, but like I feel like the editors are using them as a narrative crutch.
Yeah.
Also with Carla, I want to point out, I do very much think with her character trajectory throughout the season, I very much think that, like, like in her time on Coco, she was very dynamic, very much a personality. And then once we get to the merge, honestly, much like a lot of other people, and I'm not sure if this is just how the merge dynamic shaked out or if it was the editing at fault, but I felt like her personality, again, she just kind of became like an MOR3 machine, just a very middle of the road presence. But I think in her case, my theory with that is that she was not feeling it physically once she got to the merge. So I really do think it's probably a case of like, she probably herself got a little less animated and a little burned out. Does that make sense?
I mean, but the thing is Carla's big presence came from her confessionals, not necessarily her, in-tribe dynamics. People liked her, obviously, and that's what put her in a great position. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm not opposed to having a bunch of middle-of-the-road edits.
I am.
Like, if you're giving every single
variety
person,
makes the world go round, Casey.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it's if it serves the story, if it gives us a good picture of what's going on in the motivation, I'm perfectly fine with it. I feel like the number one thing that I have an issue in terms of Carla's storyline is like we see this build and build and build and build and build of Carla, and then sometime towards the early part of the merge, there is the revelation that like Carla's not fooling anyone. Like everyone's known that she's had an idol all along.
Right. Yeah.
That when that revelation came up, that was so like mind like baffling. Like that was just like that's a really important piece of information that you should have actually given us when it first started to develop episodes ago. So then you kind of see a very slow downward trajectory of Carla. So like in terms of her story, it was built up really well. Then there's like this mix of confusion, and then it's like, okay, she's slowly going downhill to the point where she was conned by Cody, who then in turn Jesse conned Cody and her.
And then I feel like the past couple episodes in particular, with Cassidy losing trust in her and then everything just kind of blowing up in her face, was kind of the culmination of that.
And see,
let's not forget, she was also conned by Sammy. Sammy made up a lie that Cassidy threw out Carla's name out there, and that's what's driven this wedge between them. She doesn't know who to trust. Like somebody tells her something, and because it's new, she seems to just take it on face value and lash it out to whoever the target is.
That hard cut of her trying to get Jesse to vouch for her, and then hard cut, like, no, don't trust anything Carla.
Oh no, she's terrible. She's trying to vote you out. Everything you've heard about her is true. Like not just like she tried to vote you out, just like everything. She's calling you names, just like.
But yeah, I just feel like, they're of the final 6, Cody, Jesse, and Carla have the most clear-cut stories of like where they're at in the game, their trajectory, and what is or will be their downfall for losing this game. And then Cassidy's just very much, before we move on to Owen and Gabler, Cassidy for me is very much like in the middle.
I'm going to step out for just 1 sec, guys. If you want to finish up with Cassidy, I'll be right back.
Sure. Okay. So, but yeah, for Cassidy herself, I feel like Cassidy's game is very much like, I kind of see her somewhere in the middle, and, if she gets to the end with the right people, I could see her winning it. But if she's there somehow with Carla and Jesse, I can't imagine it. But I could definitely see her winning against Owen and Gabler.
I feel like Owen's edit has been picking up some speed these last few episodes. Like we've seen the episode where he says, "I'm the Charlie Brown guy who doesn't vote right or anything. I feel like anybody can beat me." I feel like that could be. I feel like it could be 2 things. Maybe it is building him up as a possible winner, but I'm thinking more likely we're possibly building up to a possible second place finish with that. But I think overall, I think Cassidy's her votes, while she has voted right on a lot of the votes, and the ones she voted wrong at, she wasn't necessarily on the wrong side of the alliance. I feel like her problem is like she hasn't been very direct in her gameplay. Her gameplay hasn't led the charge, and I feel like that's something you need to at least have a few times on your resume. And I think even if she does get like Carla out, I feel like she's gonna at the end when they ask all the questions, they're gonna feel like, oh, Jesse played you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's also important to note that nobody plays a flawless game. When we go to Owen and Gabler, like, and I've seen this in Survivor, and I've also seen this in a lot of different orgs that I've played in or have watched myself, where like I feel so bad for Owen, because with Owen, he, in a sense, through not exactly any fault of his own, has just always had to play from the bottom. He's always had to play from the bottom. People weren't giving him a chance. People weren't doing this. People weren't doing that. This is, in some ways, and Tiki, I know we've talked about this a million times over, but this is in some ways, the I'm going to call it the Asian curse, but it's worse somehow because we're just seeing him just constantly get knocked on every fucking episode, and so frustrating.
If Eddie from Karamoan was actually good at the game, but still ended up on the wrong side of every vote.
I will float this out there. I think that outside of Jesse, Owen is probably the person that I'm rooting for from a narrative sense to win. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't think he has the votes. But I mean, I'm saying if he's in there with, like, let's say, I honestly think his only winnable combination would be Gabler and Cassidy, and he'd have a hard time against Cassidy. But I don't know. There is something about his story. I do really like his story of just, constantly being the underdog, constantly having to fight for his footing, but never giving up. And I do think the edit has been interesting how, they've broken the fourth wall with him a couple times, which is pretty unconventional for a character. I think he probably at least gets to the final tribal. I think it's more likely that he's going to be like a third place finisher, probably like a Romeo. But
I find it insanely hard to imagine a scenario where Gabler and Owen aren't in the final 3.
Right, I hear you.
I mean, if I was to predict the finale of Survivor, I would say Jesse plays his idol, and maybe Carla has 1 immunity. Cassidy goes at 5. I would say whoever wins, maybe it's a Jesse versus Carla and fire making challenge. And then Jesse wins that, and but I think you're right. I think Gabler and Owen Like, I think the problem is both of them, even though they've played decent games, I think both of them have things that you can really hammer down in a jury perspective. For Owen, you can say that he was never, for the first half of the game, he was never on the right side of the vote. And for the last half of the game, he was only like filled in, for the like as a number. He was never anybody's confidant or really strong ally. And for Gabler, I think he's just his personality and him being erratic and him, like, I feel like
Has the edit emphasized him being erratic at all since the pre-merge?
Well, okay, I would definitely like to talk
Fair
on
enough.
that topic, but Ken, I would like you definitely to finish your statement.
I think, but my point was just that I think both of them have flaws that you can easily poke at for a jury argument, where I feel like it's harder to argue against like even Carla, who I said hasn't had the strongest game. It is hard to argue against her game because she's voted right on every vote that she's gone to, and she's had made the social connections that people have wanted to put her in. Sure, she's against Cassidy right now, but if she gets her out, then she wins that war, and that's another notch on her enemy. I just say that like those guys have really big flaws, so I guess I'm betting that they're both in the finals as well.
Yeah. And with Gabler, I think, and this is actually something I was going to bring up anyway, but it was also what Tiki had literally just mentioned. Like, we're getting a really weird edit with Gabler. Most of the first half of the season, Gabler was very much a goofy, offbeat character who definitely wasn't in the majority or necessarily in the top part of that majority. Then we had this shift in the episode that he won immunity, where a very clearly comical moment was trying to be passed off as serious. And I feel like that was supposed to be the shift in his game. So who knows, maybe in a crazy world, he gets second place by like one vote.
I think that's honestly possible.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is,
I do think he's been a little bit more proactive in the game than Owen has.
Well, the thing is that ever since the second half of the game, so after this like kooky Gabler edit, it in the confessionals, he has shown to actually be completely with it. But I fear with Gabler, the situation we're looking at is we are looking at a Philip Shepard or a Nora type edit where it's like they're actually a little bit better than people give them credit for, but they're perceived to be kind of kooky and not
one of these days, Casey. One of these days, I want to see one of these people just pull it off and be like, actually, I was a savant the whole time, and this is exactly why you need to vote for me, and I'm going to lay out like concrete arguments that you cannot argue against.
If Gabler talks in his confessionals, he might have that chance.
Yeah, but you're missing one key detail, and that's that Janine is on that jury. All these Survivor players have been doing this entire time has been talking what's been happening on those days they were on the island. And Janine's definitely brought up, like, Gabriel was like, oh, I'm going to play my shot in the dark because I messed up with the challenge.
Sure. Yeah.
She's going to be talking about all the crazy stuff that Gabler was doing on that beach. And that won't paint the jury's entire picture, but that's something they're going to take into consideration as they move on to the final vote.
I mean, but also something
I keep trying to remind you guys, like, I don't think he's going to win, but I keep reminding y'all, this man is a heart surgeon. He's not an idiot. He is a very intelligent human being. If he wasn't intelligent, he wouldn't be a fucking heart surgeon.
He's not a heart surgeon. He's a heart valve specialist.
Okay, well, that sounds like even more niche.
Well, actually, that's what I thought too. But somebody who does work in the hospital industry, somebody who does work in the hospital
industry, is it a blue collar job?
Well, supposedly it's kind of like a It's kind of like a salesman position.
You
go to a hospital, and while they're performing like certain open heart surgeries, your quote unquote like merchandise is being used in the operation. So you are there in the operating room as the specialist for the piece they're using.
Yeah, you're right. That is not nearly as impressive.
That was my thing.
it doesn't even matter because we've seen smart players in the real world.
No, you're right. You're
Terrible
right.
on Survivor.
For sure.
We've seen
For
people who are just stay-at-home mothers do absolutely amazing, who don't have any high-quality specification. Remember, Sugar found the idol before the rocket scientists actually did. Let's be clear. You know, Survivor smarts and out-of-the-world smarts, they can coincide. They don't always.
I think the one time where they could very possibly coincide is in the case of like a jury speech.
Mm-hmm. Yes, like as I say, your skills can help you. You know, like being a therapist, it helped Denise. It didn't help Tori. Is all I'm saying.
It did not help Ellie at all.
Yeah, either. Yeah, exactly. So it just depends on what type of person you are. I feel like the type of person you are always trumps what type of job you have. But in any case, like, yeah, I don't see either Owen or Gabler winning. I see it possibly for Owen as this like last gasp. You know, if he's part of the vote that gets Carla out, then he's part of the vote that gets Jesse out, or he faces off okay. Maybe in a scenario where he takes off the immunity necklace and battles Jesse for fire making.
Yeah.
I could see it. I could see it there. And I could see that he, being the player's like, all I want to do is win. I could see him wanting to do that, knowing how big a move that really is.
At this point, I'm going to throw out something wild, though. At this point, do you guys think that Cassidy is actually a bigger jury threat than Carla is? The only reason I float that is just because Carla has been pretty clearly... Yeah, she's been pretty clearly contradicted. People are catching on to her, whereas I feel like with Cassidy, the threat with her is kind of that unknown factor. You know what I mean? Whereas I think Carla, her game has already kind of been exposed.
It's the playing the idol when you didn't need to.
Yeah, right.
Against your resume. You know, I think you're right. I think maybe Carla doesn't win immunity next episode. Maybe they just vote Cassidy because she's a bigger threat.
Yeah, I think at this point, Cassidy's stock is higher than Carla's, which is surprising. But all right, guys. Well, we've been at it for about 45 minutes. I think this might be a decent place to end it.
Yeah.
Yep. Any large predictions for the finale? I'm predicting Jesse win.
Yeah, same here.
Just because he was my winner pick.
Same here, but honestly, I would love, in a lot of ways, for it to be anyone else, as long as I can understand the motivation behind it. But I'm sure it's going to be a 2-hour finale, so a lot more.
I usually feel the same way that you feel, Casey, in regards to like I'm usually rooting against the obvious front runner. But in this case, I feel like Jesse pulled out such a good move that you can't help but like want that to be part of a winning game for me personally. Like it's almost kind of like, you know, like rooting for the New England Patriots or something like that. Yeah. You know, it's like they're clearly the best of the best, but you're rooting for them because they're the best of the best.
Now here, I just want to ask one question, and we can end the stream. If Jesse played, let's say this season is almost the exact same things, but it was like instead of Survivor 43 with Survivor like 23. How different do we feel like his edit is? I feel like he's getting such a villain edit, like Russell Hantz, like Tony. I feel like all like these really like evil. Like I feel like they're trying to
come to think of it. They would probably lean into his
gang side, yeah.
And they'd probably do it in a really insensitive way. So thank God that didn't happen.
You're right. You're right. But I was just wondering, I was just looking at his gameplay, and he's played one of the most cutthroat, backstab, cold games that the game seen in a very long time. And, well, not a very long time. Tony played a couple of seasons ago, but you know, it's like in a while. And I feel like they're still trying to portray him as the positive edit. I don't know. That's because
they're making it seem sympathetic.
I miss villainous edits.
Because Survivor is like Fast and the Furious. It's all about family.
It's about sob stories.
No, I'm actually kind of serious about that. Like when it comes to winners and stuff like that, it's like if you've got a family story, if you're a Jeremy or someone like that, and you've got that family story, it doesn't matter how the hell villainous you play the game. At least that's how I look at
But
it.
you know what? I think also those types of edits, those types of stories just go to show you that like there are no true villains in the world. Like
Mhm.
it's a
Right.
little bit more morally gray, you know, like
I
it's
would say Brian Heidick is a villain.
I mean we have our villains, no doubt about it, but no, I mean that's just kind of my thing. I think Jesse's story very clearly paints him with near no flaws in the game, with maybe the very, very, very early game. But you know what? I always say that like the early game of Survivor is like putting a high school job on a resume after college. Like it's
Oh God,
kind
right,
of irrelevant, you know?
I feel like we can like a lot of his moves early on. I wasn't necessarily a fan of. I wasn't necessarily a fan of him voting off NECA. I wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily a fan of going after Dwight so early. But you know what? In
He
the
has
end,
controlled
a
all
lot
those
of
votes,
times you
though, and it
can't
did
argue
go
with
his way.
results.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for watching us. It's so good for us to be here, and we're hopefully you'll join us when we react. Well, not react when we talk about the final episode of Survivor. I am Ken,
I'm
I'm
Tiki.
Casey.
I'm Tiki.
and yeah, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Live in, LIVIN.